Good afternoon. My name is Mark Ackerman. I'm the city engineer for Gulf Shores. On behalf of Mayor Kraft and the council, we welcome you to the Oyster Bay Restoration Project Public Involvement Meeting. This project is sponsored by NOAA, and they will be actually performing the presentation, but we'll have a Q&A session once the presentation has been completed. And we ask that if you have a question for the engineers or for NOAA, if you'll come to the podium and speak into the microphone, they'll be able to hear you remotely from where they're doing the presentation. They are not physically present here today, but they're going to run the presentation remotely because of COVID restrictions, but they'll be able to hear you clearly and be able to answer your questions live on the monitor if you speak into the microphones. But we'll do a brief presentation first, and then we'll start the Q&A session, and then if you want to hang around and ask any other questions of me or anybody else, feel free to do so. But with that, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Estelle Wilson.
Hey everyone, thanks Mark. If anybody has any audio or video issues hearing me, I'm gonna just I guess delay for about a minute or two here while I pull the presentation up in case there are any issues like that, and I'll just introduce myself. I guess first of all, thank you to the City of Gulf Shores for hosting this, and in particular, thank you to the folks that helped make this meeting happen and pull this together, and that allowed us to be here with you virtually to give this presentation. We're pretty excited about this project over at NOAA, and I know all the project partners that have been involved in making it happen to date are pretty excited to get to this milestone as well. And I do have some slides that I can share that I'll just walk through that I'm going to pull up right now. Again, as Mark said, my name is Stella Wilson, and I am going to share my screen. Let's see if I remember how to do this, Mark. I think I got it. Okay. So hopefully you guys are seeing this slide. I work for NOAA in the National Marine Fisheries Service, and I'm part of the Deepwater Horizon program. Previously, I was based out of the Mobile, Alabama Disaster Response Center, the NOAA Disaster Response Center there up on Zeigler in Mobile, but currently based in the Pensacola Gulf Breeze area. So that's a brief introduction of me and where I'm at, and my role in this project is again, sort of the NOAA project manager role. And as I go through some of the process-oriented stuff that we've worked on to date and that we still have ahead of us, you'll kind of see what the parts are that are coming together with NOAA here in the city. I want to start off with just a little bit of background of how we got to the point that we are now before I sort of jump into the project details. It should be really brief, like just 1 or 2 slides here. So it's been a little while since the 2010 BP Deepwater Horizon oil spill, but I'm sure most of you are familiar with that. So, you know, I'm not going to go into that at all. Just a reminder of when that was, and that this project is a restoration project as part of that spill, that event. So in 2012, the Restore Act was passed. And the Restore Act, which stands for Resources and Ecosystems, Sustainability, Forest Opportunities, and Revived Economies of the Gulf Coast States Act, Restore Act, I will not say that again. It established this Gulf Coast Ecosystem Restoration Council, and the Restore Act dedicated 80% of all of the administrative and civil penalties that were related to the Deepwater Horizon oil spill to a Gulf Coast Restoration Trust Fund. And so that Restore Act also set up the structure by which the funds can be utilized to restore and protect the natural resources, ecosystems, fisheries, marine and wildlife habitats, beaches, coastal wetlands, and economies of the Gulf region. And there are a bunch of different components, several different components of the Restore Act, what we commonly refer to as buckets. And in particular, this project that we're here to talk about today, it is funded out of the Bucket 2 pot of funds from the Restore Act, which is also called the Council Selected Restoration Component. And within that component, or that Bucket 2, fund, there are different processes, of course, for projects that are approved and then ultimately funded. So this project, again, that we're here to talk about today, it was funded under what is called the initial funded priorities list. So basically the first list of projects that the council approved. And if you're interested in looking that up on the Restore the Gulf website or the council's website, the project title is actually called Marsh Restoration in Fish River, Weeks Bay, Oyster Bay, and Meadows Tract. So this was a part of a larger suite of NOAA-led projects across the Gulf that are sort of focused on hydrologic restoration, so restoring the natural water flow in areas. And in particular, this project title was focused on 3 project sites in the Mobile Bay, Alabama area. So the overall project goal is to restore the extent, functionality, and resiliency of Gulf Coast wetlands, and then specifically focusing on restoring the natural flow, the natural hydrology to about 470 acres of wetlands across these 3 sites in Mobile Bay. And again, that number of acres does not include the other sites that NOAA is leading in some of the other states in Florida and Texas. So those 3 sites are the Fish River canals, which are located at the Weeks Bay National Estuarine and Research Reserve in over there in Magnolia Springs, Fairhope area. And then the Site 2 Meadows Tract is located over off of County Road 1 in the same general area. So we're not going to go into those 2 projects today. This being a Gulf Shores focused meeting, we're going to stay focused on the Site 3, which is the project that we call the Oyster Bay Marsh Restoration Project. So just getting a little bit more specifically into that project, I guess first I would like to just orient us a little bit here with a couple of location maps, just to give you guys an idea where the project is actually located. The figure on the left has a little bit of an outline. It just shows generally where the project is located. So you can see on the top figure, Oyster Bay there, on the bottom of the figure, and then this pink outline sort of shows you where these wetlands are that we're talking about, north of the Intracoastal Waterway, north of Oyster Bay there. And then on the right is just a little bit more of a, it's got that aerial background so you can kind of see a little bit more where the natural features are. And then it's got that outline white box that just zooms in a little bit more on where the proposed improvements would actually be at. This third figure, again, just another perspective on where the actual project location is. I think that we shared this figure in the advertisement, so I wanted to bring it up again because I think this one has more street names on it and such, so it's a little bit easier to orient if you kind of live in the area. So again, that sort of red outline with the yellow box that says project location, this is primarily where the project would be focused. I'm actually going to go back one slide. No, I'm not. And just to show you, like, again, where that pink outline was on the last slide is kind of where these wetlands are right here north of the road. So one of the reasons why this project was chosen as part of the suite of projects to restore natural hydrology, I'm just showing this photo here that we took. And this photo was taken after a rain event, but I think it demonstrates what you all probably know already living in the community and using this road, that there are wetlands on either side of this road. And I guess sort of in a natural setting, in a more natural setting, this water would sort of naturally exchange within the system between Oyster Bay and these wetlands. But with the road being there, of course, and then other sort of historic factors, such as, the construction of the Intracoastal Waterway, the dredging for that. And I think there's some issues associated with Hurricane Ivan that really results in, a restriction of that natural water flow, that natural water exchange from Oyster Bay to the wetlands. And so the water gets impounded, as you could see in the photo, and that also ends up trapping sediments, which drop in those impoundment areas, which kind of further exacerbates the issue and creates, creates more issues on either side of the road there. And of course, like I said, like we saw in the photo, also results in overtopping of the road with water. So, focusing in on this particular project site for this restoration, the goal here is to make sure that what we're doing is improving that water movement. And here you'll see the keyword under County Road 4 in order to provide more suitable habitat for birds, aquatic organisms, and other wildlife. So our design engineers really, I think the approach, that they focused on was to look at drainage improvements to this area, to this road, essentially, that would allow that improved water exchange. And so the objective for this particular site is to restore 150 acres of estuarine marsh in Oyster Bay by replacing undersized culverts. And again, the way in which we're looking to do that is to get that water flow, that water exchange back to where it would be comparable to more natural setting, and then the marsh system north of the road there is in that setting. Another aerial view, another sort of location map. I guess I had so many that I couldn't choose, so I chose all 4 for you guys to take a look at. But nothing really to note on this slide. I think it's just another photo, another view of what we're looking at here. So, we did, the design engineers and the whole project team, of course, the City of Gulf Shores staff, we did go through quite a few different alternatives that were analyzed. And all of those alternatives were modeled to see what would result in the best improvement at the site. So I'm not going to go into all of those details. We do have that information ready during the Q&A at the end of this. If folks have questions about that sort of stuff, we could share that information. But this slide is really focused on the project design that we came up with, the best project design. So this is what represents the proposed improvements. And I know this graphic is a little busy and it's very engineering, but it is the plan to install the culverts. So the ultimate proposal here is to install 3 8-foot by 4-foot box culverts. And along with that, the guardrail across the whole area. And that, again, was the alternative that came out in the modeling as the best alternative for the objectives and the goals that we kind of just went over. The specific location of where this box culvert would go was based on the historic stream channel. Again, I showed you sort of the outline of where those wetlands were and where the road sort of intersects that wetland area and kind of cuts it off from Oyster Bay. It's also based on the existing topography, of course, and as we saw in the photo, and the modeling also showed the overtopping of the road there. So rather than, kind of digging up the existing culverts, the idea here is just to leave those in place and then install this set of culverts as well in addition to it. I guess I kind of just wanted to, I think a lot of this is sort of process oriented, but I wanted just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of the timeline here. So we are at the tail end of the design phase, which is great. The environmental compliance is complete. So we are essentially ready to move to the construction phase. We do need to work with the Gulf Coast Ecosystem Restoration Council that I mentioned earlier to secure the construction funds. They are already set aside, but we have to work through the application process with that council in order to actually get the funds in hand in order to start the construction phase. And so these are some estimated dates. I put a little note here that, these dates are approximate and subject to shifting. I'm sure everybody knows there have been all kinds of interesting schedule issues in the past year or so. So this, again, is just an estimate. But once we get all of the agreements in place and the bidding and everything happens, we expect the construction to begin probably later this year. I think that's a pretty decent estimate, and I can let Mark correct me if I'm wrong on that. And then the design calls for less than a 60-day construction period. So I think it'll all depend on what the the documents end up saying. But I think from November to February or whatever 2 to 3 month time frame that is, that's going to be plenty of time to finish the construction. It's in sort of the bigger scheme of things, it's not a huge project, so it shouldn't take too terribly long. And then we do have a little bit of project performance monitoring that we want to do after the project is actually constructed, just to make sure that everything that we planned and that the modeling and everything comes out the way we were thinking it is, and then to report those metrics back to the council that we were just talking about, since the funding is coming from them, and to sort of verify that the project was installed and to do all of their reporting. So I think that might have been all I had. I feel like I flew through that really fast, but hopefully you guys could all understand me and everything was clear, and I will stop there.
And again, if anybody has any questions, if you'll come to the podium and speak into the microphone, Stella and her team will be able to hear your questions clearly and be able to answer them through the monitors.
Have questions, let me introduce Mary Beth Sullivan, who is with Moffitt Nickel, and she has been the project design engineer. The Moffitt Nickel team has been working with NOAA throughout this project, and she is here supporting us and is going to help us answer any questions as well.
I think we have a question.
Could you tell us what challenges you might see obtaining the funding by, would you say, September of 21? Do you see any ahead of you?
That's a great question. I think it seems like there have been a lot of things due to COVID restrictions and staff in different agencies focused, really heavily on that, there can be some administrative type delays. To be totally honest with you, there's a lot of paperwork to process before that point. So we have a lot of documents to complete. So I feel like that's probably the biggest hurdle, is getting through all those documents. But if you're asking if there's any chance that we may not get the funding, that funding is set aside specifically for this project. It's just a matter of going through the process, so it won't disappear. It'll still be there. It's just a matter of getting to that point. Again, those dates are estimates. I think there's pretty good estimates, but there could definitely be delays, probably due to administrative processing.
It's Mayor Kraft.
Yes, we have issues not only with the drainage, which is what this project's for, but there's opportunities there to create more safety opportunities in the road, because when the water comes over the road, it can be quite dangerous and quite narrow to get through there. Are we elevating the road bed any in this process that will help contain the water on the north side and force it to get to the culvert to go under the road instead of over the road?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll take that one, Stella, if that's okay. Yes, sir. The answer is yes. We are raising the profile of the road to allow for these larger culverts, which in turn do funnel the water towards the culverts and should reduce the flooding that is currently experienced at the site.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you plan to do anything more than just that 50 yards of construction? When you start repaving, are you going to do anything to the east and west regarding County Road 4 to make it any better than what it is?
Stella, that's actually a question I can answer. We are currently looking at costing out roadway improvements to Waterway West. We're in the early stages of that, but it is something we are anticipating to doing in the near future. We are looking at the opportunities, obviously, to improve the road quality, possibly the road elevation, making it more pedestrian friendly. So that's one of the things we're looking at now. I'm actually working with an engineer to get some costing on that so we can look at future budget years to get that programmed into our future budget.
Just so everyone is aware, we did work with the city and incorporated a typical section which would accommodate those future improvements as they come on board. So we should be good to go with that.
Stella, I think that may be all the questions we have for this evening.
Well, let me throw this presentation back up, as if you didn't catch my email at the end here. Well, that's not what I wanted to do. Sorry about that. Hopefully, here we go. Here it is. Sorry about that. If you do have questions that come to mind after this, please feel free to reach out and email me. Of course, Mark as well. My email address is here on the screen. But again, I guess I would just say that we're looking forward to the next phase of this project, and we're really excited that we've gotten to this milestone, and really happy to share this progress with you guys, and happy to see this much needed improvement in your community.
It seems like you're going to lower the elevation of the culverts so that it's lower than what it is on the south side of the road. So with this project, are you also doing some grading south of County Road 4 to get out to the intercoastal?
Yeah, I can take that one. We are doing limited grading within the right of way to make sure that the culverts have free exchange. Once you get further than, kind of immediate to the road, the marsh will actually convey the water without any additional dredging. And we felt that it would be more damage than good to go in and dredge the marsh south of the road. But just what you will see is that the water will be conveyed more naturally, which was the goal of this project, on a southern path south of County Road 4.
Mary Beth, I think you also talked about, I know one of our conversations, that over time, the natural channels should start to reestablish themselves once this hydraulic exchange is reestablished at this location. Is that what you still believe?
Yes, sir. We believe that for 2 reasons. A, we did place the culverts near the historic stream bed to try to, recreate that natural flow. And additionally, the sediments that have filled in the historic stream bed should be finer, more clay-like. And so once we reestablish that flow, they will be displaced over onto the banks or further downstream, and that natural stream bed will start realigning. It may take some time because it is a natural process, because we're not going to force it. We're going to let Mother Nature do her thing, and there again get back to that historic flow.
Yes, I assume that they're going to block the road off, and I was wondering where they would stop the traffic.
I could take that one. I know the limits of construction on the project. It could be, and we won't know this until the project's bid. The contractor, whenever there is a contractor selected, traffic control will be part of their submittal. They'll have to show us how they plan to control the traffic. Obviously, there's going to be some time that the whole road will have to be closed as they put these culverts in. I think the intent is to use precast culverts so that they arrive on site already fabricated, so we don't have a long time to pour the concrete. But if there is a complete road closure required, then everybody would have to be detoured up to County Road 6 and back to County Road 6 north to 59, that route. Nick, we can work with you on that. That won't be a problem at all. We will provide, we'll put it at a strategic location so that non-local traffic has a place to turn around and won't be using your driveway as a turnaround, because I remember when that happened.
There's a considerable number of bikers and joggers that go up and down that road. In your improvements, are you making allowance possibly for a bike or an alternative situation, and that would be included in this project?
As Mary Beth mentioned earlier, they worked with us to make sure that these culverts are going to be long enough so that we have room to widen the road in the future to add bike lanes. Bike lanes will not be included in this particular project because they would just be within the segment that's under construction. But long term, we want to improve the pedestrian safety and are looking at bike lanes as well as maybe a detached multi-use trail along that whole route of Waterway West.
I don't know if you were going to jump in there, and I think you mentioned it earlier, but there is also the spacing for the pedestrian improvements, like Mark said, not obviously for the whole road span there, but for this particular project, there will be the spacing. I think the guardrail will be far enough away from the road to allow a potential sidewalk in the future to be connected to the rest of the road, should those improvements go forth in the future.
Anybody has any questions for me from at least the overall thought process? I'm here, and if you've got any questions you want to address to me, I'll be glad to try to answer. If you want to have any questions, I mean, obviously, this is something that is long range, and we've got opportunities for future grants that we can apply for. We've received some of the SCORE grants. The SCORE grants is the same thing they were talking about, but we have access within bucket 1 and bucket 3. There's still money available. We can't get out directly instead of having to go to the federal council on bucket 2. We've got opportunities to apply, but this is the kind of project we will be. We're close to being able to submit new projects. Again, we've already had one round. The second round will be coming eligible probably early next year. For us, if we're already working internally to come up with projects that will fit the criteria to be eligible for future SCORE grants, help us fund completing this all the way through over a period of time. And this is the fundamental first project to get that water off the road and create a little bit safer area within that local place. We will one day hopefully get the funding necessary. The city's determined to make this work one way or the other, to get the money necessary to improve that road all the way to 59, all the way around the 6 or 59 feet. At some point, we'll have some annexation issues that we'll have to do to get the rest of that road. We need to fix it necessarily. It's not our city limits. We've got long-term plans to try to improve the transportation corridor and make this road safe. We have a lot of development that's getting ready to occur potentially. One subdivision under construction out there now. We've got others that the old monster building site is developing out nicely. There'll be more traffic on that, and that road is not capable of supporting traffic. That's what not more traffic.
So there are plans then for upgrading
The entire road. It'll be over time. It's not going to happen overnight. The primary issue is funding. We have another application, like I said, 2022, to get in line for more SCORE money. we've already got a couple of those. We're working on several different roadway transportation projects right now. Most of those to the west, this one, I mean, to the east, this one to the west is equally important. It wasn't to the point where we had critical need, until we got this fixed. We couldn't really fix this. We got the culverts fixed, and our next focus is moving on this.
Is the road all city or is it city?
It's all city, up to the intersection with County Road 4. All of 4 is, yes, sir.
It's interesting concept of getting here. Any thought in giving to Oyster Lake place right around the corner that goes down? It's simple to set up when water comes in, but back up to the river, you can flood that whole way down to right this west of the Walker Park right here, that road, those big lights. The similar setup. But water comes up and it flood that road out of rain.
Unfortunately, that's not my back in that area. So until that whole area ends, we're in control of the infrastructure. It's very limited.
Kind of choppy with the county and city that I have a lot of
I mean, long term, it makes sense that we would have eventually everything south of 10 and west of the Beach Express being our corporate limits. It's very spotty right now. Along County Road 6, along County Road 8 west, we have a lot of in and out properties, and we don't have complete contiguous properties through there. So the county still maintains the roads on 6 west, on 8 west, and on Plash Island. So that's why it's a little hodgepodge. And right now, there's just not been. We're seeing more annexations because of the city school system. We've had a lot of people want to get into the city school, so we're seeing more of an upswing in annexations. But there's still a lot of properties that are not in the corporate limits, and without all of them being in, we can't legally take over the maintenance of the infrastructure.
So if there were some type of community request to be annexed into the city, it would have to be by vote. But if the community was to request that, the city would support it. The city would do what we could. Until it's in the city limits, we can't fix the road. We can't work outside our corporate limits. The reason we're not able to fix the Flash Island road, it's not in our city limits. So we're kind of hamstrung until that community decides they want to be annexed. And I know there are a lot of properties out there that are unzoned in the county. And that's a big concern to me. The people that are living in the city but adjacent to an unzoned piece of property, you have no control of what's going to be. It's real dangerous from quality of life standpoint. People in the city that chose to live out there. It's a real mess, but it cannot be into the city and be addressed by us until we get some level of consolidated request. Then we can react. That just FYI, I mean, I'm not sure groundwork of how we fix that area. It's got to be, I'm hoping the county should be compelled to rezone that. So I have been able to get rid of unzoned in the county. Unzoned, we have no control of what it is. My concern is our residents. It's being one of the bigger issues that I hope we can deal with in the coming couple of years. While I've got 4 more years as mayor, and I'm probably out. But that's one of my responsibilities. I'd like to see get that off the corporate level.
Does anybody have any further questions regarding the project itself for Stella and Mary Beth? Because I'm sure they'd like to drop off of this as soon as they can, and I'll be glad to stay and answer any questions you have related to city issues.
Me too. I'm sorry I didn't mean to take over your
No, I just saw them pop up. I think they were nudging me subconsciously through this monitor there. They have done a phenomenal job from day one on this project, and thank you both. and the team. They are the stars. We're just here. All we're doing is hosting the presentation, but these are the two ladies that are making this possible. I think that's it. I don't think anybody else has any more questions.
Okay, thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Bye all.